Stacy, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is August 1st, 2011. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I've been through the steps, and I think I'm a sponsor. It's debatable sometimes. So my sponsor said, don't fuck it up. And my mom said, don't use foul language and write notes. So I have notes, Mom. I would love to say that I didn't drink as a child, but I realized a couple months before the sobriety date that I have that I did drink as a child. I would pour large glasses of schnapps or something that was sweet and tasty, and I would play in my room, and I had that warm, comfortable feeling. And for many years I was a real snob about that because I felt that I didn't start until I was a teenager, but that's just not true. I did start drinking as a teenager because it wasn't peer pressure. I wanted to, and I was a barfer though, and I spent a lot of time wrapped around the toilet. But when I stopped throwing up, it was on. And through my 20s, I graduated from house parties to barfly, and I was really good at that. And I could get really drunk on $5, and I did that for a long time, and it seemed like my friends kind of grew out of it, and I just never did. And in my 30s, I then graduated to isolationist drinking, and I like to have a Coke in one hand and a bottle in the other and just go for it. And that's what it was like. And what happened is I had a couple years of sobriety, a little over 2 years, and I didn't have meetings, and I didn't have a program, and I wasn't in contact with the people that matter to me and that I matter to enough. And eventually life started to pile up on me, and I was also on the marijuana maintenance plan, and I like to do a lot of nitrous oxide because I like to laugh and hang out with people that aren't there. I started sneaking it here and there, and it built and built and built and built. And at the end of 11-month period, I was drinking a half-gallon of vodka a day. I was having seizures all the time, and I was hallucinating and seeing stuff. But weirdly enough, when I had the intake to where I went to rehab to make sure I was well enough to go to rehab, he asked me all those questions, and I said no. And it wasn't until later in sobriety that I realized, like, it wasn't that cold in my apartment, that those were seizures, and that, you know, the wall doesn't bend and everybody doesn't hear stuff. I just figured when I'd go look out the window, whatever it was faster than I was. But I got to a point where I almost made a drunken, slovenly call to my mom that I needed help, and I couldn't put her through that phone call one more time, and so I just kept drinking. And I thought if I woke up the next morning and I felt the same way, I would call before I took a drink, and that's what I did, and that's where my journey started. I drank as much as I could, as often as I could until then, and really I think it was just an accident that I tapered down. I was just tired and I was beat up. I went to Capistrano, which I thought was going to be a really romantic experience with like facials and spas and stuff like that, and it really was not quite that experience for me. It was an old house in East Bakersfield, and most everyone there had come there from prison, and there was a lot of really cool tattoos. And I can remember I finally, I would go out and smoke when nobody was out there, and I finally had didn't care, and I just wanted to smoke, and I would go out there, and this girl asked me what happened, because from the neck down I was just covered in bruises. I was like, nothing, I'm an alcoholic. And she's like, well, who did you fight with? I was like, I don't know, sometimes the floor and the wall and myself. I even had like a big bruise here. I had a big bruise on the top of my foot, and I couldn't tell you where any of them came from except the ones on my arms and the one on my foot, because I lived in San Luis Obispo at the time, and I decided that I needed to go to the beach because I was never going to see the ocean again. And I've seen the ocean since I've got sober, just to let you know ahead of time. But I was covered in bruises because I kept falling, and my friend kept trying to pick me up, and I had grab marks all the way down both arms, and I had sand in my ears for my first week in rehab because it wasn't uncomfortable enough. I think I needed that extra. And then I learned about my alcoholism there, and I learned about Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got a fresh start. And I think that I needed to go to a place like that because, had I been to some spa with facials and yoga and stuff like that, I don't know that I could have taken it as seriously as I did. It was suggested at a family meeting that instead of getting me an apartment, that we get me into sober living, and I hated that idea. And I went to sober living. And I lived in sober living for a year, and I hated it, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. I didn't want a curfew. I didn't want to follow chores. And by the end of the year, I was like total polyprogrammer, and the one who would, we would clean house together, me and my roommate, and we'd admonish the others for not cleaning, and just I never imagined being that girl. And I was dying to get out of sober living, and so I went into the most natural position that you would think that I would go into, so I went to go manage a sober living. And so I went from being a disgruntled nun to a mean Mother Superior. And so I think the best way to talk about what it's like now would be to talk about how the Roundup has affected my sobriety. I don't think that it's an accident that the Roundup started the year that I was born, but it's unfortunate that someone's math is wrong because I'm 40. My first Roundup, I came honestly to escape those stupid speaker meetings on Friday and Saturday night that my house mom would make us go to. I had a really great career of donating plasma to get gas and cigarettes, and I couldn't afford the Roundup. So I asked my mom if I could do some yard work or some chores for her to get the registration fee and for the ice cream social and the dance, even though I knew they were going to be stupid. And I went to do yard work for my mom, and I worked for 2 days, and I think it was $5 an hour. And I went to go work for 2 days, and on the way home from the second day, my mom said, you did a really good job, and I'm really proud of you. Do you want a pack of smokes? And I was like, sweet. And so she went in, and I said, Mom, can you please go in and get the smokes for me because I'm filthy? And she said, yeah. And she handed me that pack of smokes, and she handed me a $10 bill with it. And I said, Mom, I did the work for the registration, and that's all that I needed for. And she said, I just want you to have $10 so you can do something for yourself. And at 38 years old, that was the first time in a decade that my mom had given me cash, hand over fist. And still to this day, it's the most important $10 that has crossed my hands. Ooh, God, I can't believe I got choked up. That's so not punk rock. The second year that I attended the Roundup, and I must say that every year since then, my parents have gifted me my registration as a gift to my sobriety, and I greatly appreciate it. And I really realize what a potty mouth I am and how rough my speaking can be when my parents are in the audience. My second year of the Roundup, I can't tell you a whole lot about it, but I can tell you that the person that I attended with is now deceased of this disease, and they died a sad and lonely death, and I miss them greatly. And the perfume I'm wearing tonight, they gave me. My third Roundup, by then I was a house mom, and I had been a house mom for about a year and a half, and my mom and I met my mom to go to the AA Al-Anon speaker meeting, and that morning I had a girl decide that she was going to leave, and I remember so specifically looking into her face and knowing where this was going to lead to, and knowing that I didn't want to leave, but I had a commitment with my mom, and I was taught here to meet up to the commitments to AA and meet up to commitments with your family. And I knew that my coworker could handle it, but I wanted to handle it, because I'm sure it's hard to believe, but I'm a little bit of a micromanager. But I left my co-manager to do that, and I was fine on the drive here, and I was fine in the walk from the parking lot, and I melted when I saw my mom. And we went to the AA Al-Anon speaker meeting, and after that speaker meeting, I was blessed to have my AA mom meet my mom. And my AA mom told me a couple weeks before the Roundup, she put her hands on my face and said, if I had a daughter, I'd want her to be you. And I said, I don't know, it wasn't all as perfect as you see me today. And she said, even with that, I've had all sons, and if I were to have a daughter, I would want her to be you. And it was such a graceful moment for my mom and my AA mom to meet each other. And then I really melted, and I cried in their arms, and they both cried with me, and it was okay. It was not very punk rock, and I was really embarrassed, but I needed to do that, and it was a safe, comfortable place to do it, and it was a bonding moment from my family life to my AA life. My fourth Roundup, I went with the girls. It was the girls from my house, and we were going to have fun, and I was kind of tired when it came to the dance, and I said, oh, girls, you go in and have fun, and I'll be out here smoking, and I'm going to go get something to eat, and if you need me, just get me, and I'll take you home. And about 1 minute later, my resident came back out, and I said, what happened? It wasn't cool? And she goes, Stacy, I have epilepsy. There's strobe lights in there. So it's progress, not perfection. The fifth Roundup, which was last year, I had the extreme joy of coming to the Roundup, as I usually do with my mom. But I also got to come here with my friend, who's been my friend for 30 years. And she got sober in 2003, and I tried as well, but it didn't stick for me. And my mom and her mom and I listened to the meetings, and it's a rude awakening of what kind of twisted shit we laugh at when you're sitting next to your mom and you're just hysterical and crying and they're not laughing at all and their arms are folded. I never really looked at it from that perspective before. It was kind of an odd thing. But it was a really great thing too, because I've shared my sobriety with my friend, but for both of our moms to go here, because her mom just didn't understand why we still went to those meetings so often, and for both of us, to some degree, our drinking was at arm's length for our family, so it was nice to hear what our experience, strength, and hope was like through the mouths of others. And then this year, here I am, speaking at this thing that I thought was stupid, and I really came to because I wanted to get away from the speaker meetings that were also stupid. I'm now secretary of the Friday night speaker meeting, and I've had a commitment there. I've had a commitment there for 4 years. And I thought that this has literally been like 2 of the shittiest weeks of my sobriety. And when I was getting ready this morning, I thought even if I totally screw it up or it totally goes wrong or one other crappy thing happens, I look fucking fantastic and I'm sober. I was going to breeze in and be the opening act and float around in fantastic dresses all weekend and just give hugs and be fantastic, and the grown-ups have given me chores all weekend. Because I did things that I wanted to do. I made phone calls that I didn't want to make. I read a book that I thought was ridiculous. I go to meetings that are lame. I held hands with creeps. And I share from my heart. And here I stand 5.5 years later sober, and I'm pretty sure that I'll take my last breath sober. And I'm so proud and honored to be asked to speak here. If you're new and you're struggling and you're here because this is better than the speaker meetings and your house mom made you come, welcome. If you don't understand it and I pissed you off and you think this is lame and you didn't understand what I said, congratulations. I have so freely given to you what was so freely given to me. I would love to take credit for that, but my sense of humor comes from my wonderful family. If you're new or you're an old-timer and I touched your heart, or I made you want to stay, or I made you think about it, or I made your day a little bit better, I would love to take credit for that, but I have to give credit to my higher power, and I found my higher power in AA. Thanks.